Esilio, bralerie les prêts. Esili ma piano, bralerie les prêts. Moi, gen ou loi qui danse dans tête, moi. Jouti les connaît, non, il m'a fait au cadeau prêt.
Come with me to a voodoo ceremony in Haiti. Voodoo is one of the most misunderstood religions in the world. Having experienced it in West Africa and now in Haiti, I've learned that it's not what many other religions demonize it to be. Today I'm driving from Cap Haitien to Plan au Nord to witness a voodoo ceremony. I've learned that it's a spiritual tradition rooted in West African beliefs, and in Haiti it's blended with Catholic and indigenous influences. Practitioners honor spirits called Iwa, who act as intermediaries between humans and the creator Bon Dieu. One of the most powerful moments that I was able to witness myself is spirit possession. This is when Iwa takes hold of someone and they embody the spirit offering guidance or healing. There are many different aspects to voodoo, but today during the ceremony I am able to see people offering food, rum, and even animal sacrifices. These are given to maintain balance and seek blessings from the spirits. Here worshippers can purchase different items as offerings. You can see there are candles, there's deodorizer, there's holy water, there's different ribbons. At the heart of voodoo is music and dance. Each rhythm calls on a specific Iwa to join the ceremony, and it is incredible to watch. I feel so honored that I was able to be a part of it. I was also told that voodoo even played a role in Haiti's fight for independence, and that one of the ceremonies in 1791 is what actually helped spark the revolution that freed Haiti from French rule. I've personally never had a negative impression of voodoo, but what I realize now more than ever is that it's about resilience, healing, and community more than anything. Not demons and witchcraft as many would like you to believe. And while I've only scratched the surface, I feel honored that I was able to witness the beauty of voodoo today.
Honor and respect, honor and respect, honor and respect. Divine all blessed greetings and salutations. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Voodoo Hoodoo 101. Brought to you by, powered, produced, promoted, sponsored, and supported by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. Become a part of something extraordinary. New Orleans International Voodoo Day is not just an event. It is a movement that celebrates culture, fosters education, and connects people from around the globe. By sponsoring this event, you're supporting a tax-deductible cause that preserves heritage, uplifts art and education, and fosters healing within the community and beyond. Your sponsorship goes beyond promoting your business. It demonstrates your commitment to cultural preservation and education, while supporting a unique event that brings international recognition to New Orleans. Events like symposiums, art exhibitions, sacred processions, and global speakers offer unparalleled opportunities to honor history and inspire a brighter future. Supporting an event like this means empowering a community, enriching cultural understanding, and making a meaningful impact on the world. It connects your brand to a celebration that values unity, diversity, and progress, while helping preserve traditions for generations to come. So please join us in creating a legacy. Explore our sponsorship tiers and help us make New Orleans International Voodoo Day an unforgettable celebration. Together, we can uplift the community and inspire the world. And I'm certainly thankful, grateful, and appreciative of those of you who continue to support our live Monday through Friday, weeknight, 9 p.m. podcast. Thank you so much, Ray Alexander, for your continued participation and support. Greetings to you, Lateria Daniels. Thank you so much for your continued support and listenership. Greetings, Daniel Neal, faithful member of our community. And greetings and salutations to you and yours, Brett Dash. Thank you so much for your continued support and participation. The effects of the Nat Turner slave revolt on the health and welfare of 19th century slaves in southeastern Virginia and throughout the South. Slave health has typically been studied as a subject apart from the health of whites. During the time of slavery, there was a great deal of information available, including numerous books that describe the best ways to care for slaves, as it was believed that they required different medical care from whites. For example, it was claimed that blacks should not be bled, as they were unable to handle it. However, this may not have been a bad thing, since bloodletting more often exacerbated the problems, and the poor sanitation in slave quarters would not likely have been good for open wounds. It is important to note that while there were books and standards on the treatment of slaves, in the end, the health care of slaves came down to the master, as slaves were barred from preparing and administering their own medicine and folk remedies. In fact, a 1748 Virginia law specifically prohibited them from doing so. These racial differences were not just in treatment, but were also found in susceptibility to disease. One example of this is malaria, which was an epidemic in the Tidewater area. Early physicians found that the slaves were less susceptible to malaria, and some even used this as a justification that blacks were meant to perform work in these conditions, and therefore designed for a life of hard labor. Early physicians also found that blacks were more susceptible to both frostbite and to tuberculosis. It is likely that the greater susceptibility to tuberculosis was a function of poor living conditions. However, dark skin has been shown to have a greater susceptibility to frostbite, and this resistance to cold may in fact be one of the reasons that lighter skin evolved. For Virginia slaves, life would have been filled with epidemic disease, parasites, and heavy labor, all creating an environment that is almost perfectly designed for poor health. The presence of disease would have been constant, but diseases came in seasons. In Virginia, the winter months were the time for respiratory illness brought on by close quarters, poor indoor air quality, and byproducts of drying tobacco. Although they were far from disease-free, these months did have much lower deaths, especially in January and February, even though these would have been nutritionally leaner months. Importantly, this was not true for all areas. The summer months came with insects and parasites and other diseases. These months were sometimes known as the sickly months due to the fact that June, July, and August saw more than 1/3 of all deaths for 15 to 49-year-olds. Given an even distribution, this number should be nearly 10 points lower. Savit estimates that 50% of slaves were infested with parasites at some point in their lives, and many were likely to have been chronically afflicted. Parasites and insect-borne diseases were not the only diseases epidemic to slave populations. Other diseases of poor sanitation, such as typhoid, dysentery, and cholera, were both epidemic and endemic, with cholera being especially prevalent among those in urban areas, especially along waterways. These parasites and diseases were spread not just through general poor sanitation, but through the practice of geophagy, geophagy as well. This gave the parasite eggs, which had been excreted a direct path back into the human system. To make matters worse, zoonotic disease would also have been present due to working closely with animals. This disease burden would have been very high for a slave in Virginia and would have included things such as intestinal parasites, which can have a serious toll on nutritional health, and diseases such as cholera, to which they would have had little resistance. The presence of epidemics in antebellum Virginia cannot be ignored. The South faced the same epidemic diseases that would have been faced in other parts of the country, such as yellow fever and cholera. However, unlike in other parts of the country, the low population density of much of the South meant that outbreaks such as yellow fever would have been reserved to a handful of cities, and that disease, such as cholera, would have been more endemic than epidemic. Additionally, the fact that tobacco required dispersed labor meant that the likelihood of epidemic spreading was reduced. While all diseases would have taken a toll on the nutritional health of individuals in many ways, Steckel argues that the relatively poor health of slaves as compared to local whites cannot be primarily attributed to harsh disease environment. He suggests that Southern whites would have been exposed to the same disease environment and similar conditions. The flaw with this argument is that the living conditions for slaves are likely to have been poorer than those of all but the most disenfranchised whites. The use of night soils by Blacks also may have contributed to the higher parasite load, as the droppings would be filled with parasites that thrive in a humid environment. Additionally, the parasite burden also would likely have taken its toll in many ways. Parasites have the ability to not just sicken and kill those whom they infest, but to feed off the host for long periods of time. It is this ability to sap vital nutrients from the host that would have had the largest effect on nutritional health. The diseases and malnutrition would have fed off one another, with weakness causing loss of appetite and malnutrition causing further weaknesses in a vicious feedback cycle. And tomorrow night, we're going to continue in the discussion with their actual labor activities. And before I pass the mic to my beloved co-host, we know that there were many plagues that affected the Big Easy, New Orleans. The city has a darker side and a sinister past, fraught with flooding, pestilence, and death, all of which can really make us les bon temps roulés just a little bit less. It's all fun and games until someone gets a highly contagious rash. Today, New Orleans is still reeling from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Nearly 18,000 people died in the state of Louisiana, and the disease forever changed the way we do business, entertain ourselves, and interact with each other. Yet this is nothing new. Throughout its 300-plus year history, New Orleans has been plagued by countless plagues, accounting for millions of sick and disease. People have tried everything from poisoning dogs to performing enemas in hopes of warding off a range of ailments. Some even believe that wearing woolen underwear and socks, as well as how many tomatoes they ate, could influence the onset of disease. Hoping to fight the different epidemics overtaking New Orleans, a group of physicians founded Tulane University, which began as the Medical College of Louisiana in 1834. We have dealt with smallpox, malaria, yellow fever, cholera, and bubonic plague in our 300-year history here in the city of New Orleans. And certainly home remedies, hoodoo, conjure, root work has played a vital role in the maintenance of our own health, as well as what medical facilities are and have been available to us. I want to bring in my beloved co-host, my first priest and my armor bearer, Black Hawk Voodoo Wild Man, Brother Joshua Nylan Tanner, Elder Reggie, we know on this platform as Green Soap, leader and founder of Shrine of White Cloth, and our beloved Queen Mother, Sister Toni Martinez. Please do come on in. All is a blessing.
Hello, good night, everyone. Good night, everyone in the listening audience. Elder Reggie, Josh, and my beloved Divine Prince. Listening to you talk about all the ways they tried to ward off diseases. During the yellow fever, they actually sounded off cannons trying to ward off the fever. That's just how desperate they were. You could hear cannons blowing in intermediate sounding stages for the yellow fever. Also something that plagued the enslaved a lot was worms in the intestines, which me coming up and with my kid, I always gave them beer for that. But worms was a big problem. That was one of the things that would be found in the feces. And also right now, they're raising an alarm about whooping cough making a comeback in Louisiana. There's been 2 infant deaths already. And I've been advising everybody, please pay attention to your children coughing. That's something we often overlook when someone sneezes or coughs, but pay attention to the rhythm. We got that going on right now. We had churches built specifically to bring the bodies of diseased people who passed away from diseases. To have so many was dying, they had to build extra churches just to bring their body through being Catholic. We in the Catholic state. And I'm just thinking, you know, nothing, when they just went through the streets of the city saying, bring out your dead, man, that had to be something to live through. People just dumping dead bodies on the banquet, because that's what we called the sidewalk back then, the banquet. And just wrap them up and put them there and somebody come and pick them up. Man, that's rough. Vaccines have saved us from a lot of illnesses that we can't even imagine. It saved us through a lot. I know when COVID came and we thought about the first pandemic that happened in, I think, 1918, 17 or something. My mama was alive and survived that pandemic. And then here I'm going 100 years later, surviving another pandemic to hit the city. So, yeah, vaccines has helped a lot. I don't understand why this governmental regime does not want to go forward for us to find vaccines, to keep studying ways to make vaccines. What say you, Brother Joshua?
Yeah, how you doing? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Elder Reggie, Sister Toni, and Divine. I just think about the taxes that they've always employed against us, which is tactics to try to get rid of us. So I think it's just another tactic of him trying to take away protections that we have had and have gotten accustomed to outside of our own protections that we have gotten and learned from through our ancestors and our culture of healing and protecting ourselves. He's taking that away from us so we can be victim to whatever comes our way.
And you know,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Brother Elder.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Toni. Good night, everyone. Divine Prince, another good topic. Brother Joshua, Sister Toni, and the collective audience in the chat. As Divine Prince rereading, it always triggered thoughts in my head. And I'm such a big follower and fan of Mother Catherine Seal and that whole movement of the New Orleans Spiritual Church. But if we set the background from, let's say, 1920 to 1930, medicine was coming up, some medicine was coming of age at that time. But what was used in New Orleans in particular, and I'm pretty sure throughout the South, in Mother Catherine Seal case, it was turpentine and salt. She believed in heavy prayers for everything. But when she did give a remedy, it was turpentine and it was salt. Now, I remember myself coming up, turpentine was still used in small doses, but there was another product that was used that was called blueing. They used to use blueing. I think blueing was akin to bleach or something like that, but they would give it to you in small doses. And this was supposed to eradicate parasites out the body and help with ailments and things of that nature. But the overall methodology for healing was prayer, faith and prayer. That's what I wanted to add.
I'm familiar with blueing. My mother rinsed her gray hair with it, and it gave her hair a blue tint, like Hank Blue.
Mm-hmm.
And she used it to keep evil spirits from entering her mind. She used it, it's a whitener, it's a clothes whitener. She put it in a laundry and she put it in a rinse with her hair. Every now and then I used to use blueing when I had my kids, but now I haven't bought it in a long time because I'm not washing white clothes like I was with the boys and stuff. But it's a good whitener. And come in that little blue bottle. Remember that little blue bottle?
Yeah.
With the old lady on the label, the old lady on the label.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Indeed.
And my mama used blueing also to put in her mop water sometime, not all the time. Now, she didn't tell me what was special about that time, but since it would make the water a Hank blue color, I'm thinking she was using it for some kind of protection. That was needed some extra protection that was needed. And I just went and found some tablets at Amazon that I'm going to buy to use to mop with also. I was about to get back into doing that. They actually sell them for spiritual work on Amazon.
Well, it's a beautiful topic. Anything on turpentine? We all know salt is used even today in spiritual practice, but the turpentine, because when Mother Catherine Seal came in from North Carolina, she brought that remedy with her to New Orleans.
Well, I know my daddy used to use it on his knee. He would rub it into his knee for his arthritis. We kept a lot of turpentine, but I really don't remember anything other than the smell when my dad rubbed it on his knee for his arthritis. So, but she never gave it to me. That's surprising. She gave me everything else but the kitchen sink.
I remember taking turpentine once or twice as a child.
You have?
Yeah, and the way it was being employed, Sister Toni, it was a remedy, but it was a prayer. I believe the remedy was going to get you to use the bathroom a lot, and the prayers would bring forth the healing, because they felt like any sickness or illness you had, there was some negative spirit that entered within your person.
Yes.
And if you get this negative entity out of you, then the healing can begin. But this was the methodology they had to use. And we call it hoodoo, and some forms of it is still being used today. But if you go back at that time period, this was it. They didn't have anything else.
Yeah, and like I say, my mama rinsed her hair in that blowing, and that was I'm wondering now if that was something they did to ward off dementia back in the day, because she said it was to keep up from bad thoughts. Bad thoughts.
And just to touch back on what Divine Prince was talking about earlier about the diseases that came through. He mentioned one that a lot of people may not understand, smallpox, which is associated with the Trail of Tears, which is associated with the Indian Removal Act and the removal of Indians out of the Southeast, which is where New Orleans is, to Oklahoma and to places out west, away from their original land and their ways of living and surviving off the land, in these swamps, in these bayous, that naturally gave them medicine and had ancestral connection to. So
they say they gave them smallpox infected blankets, because smallpox is highly contagious. And like you said, with them being removed from their pharmaceutical herbs and stuff, Divine, didn't you play in a movie where they had smallpox?
I may have, but I don't remember. Do you remember that, Joshua?
I know it was horrible. It's the movie where you had all the blisters over your body. I think you did, and you had to go to the smallpox asylum on an island somewhere. But anyway,
yeah, I forgot all about that.
Well, see, that's why you got me. You had to go in an asylum where everybody was locked up, and they had blisters all over their body, all over their face and everything. And you were telling me how horrible it was to know that people had that. They had put them on an island somewhere in quarantine. But another reason why New Orleans had a lot of diseases like that too, like the bubonic plague, and a lot in cholera, because like in the city was nasty. Point blank. They didn't have a sanitation system until somebody figured out that these rats were spreading the bubonic plague, and that the filth was causing the cholera. They just dumped they trash in the street. They dumped they slop jars in the street. There was no sewage system. They were nasty. But that's point blank.
Yeah, and to contribute to that, because I had read on that, Sister Toni, but also because of the water table in the city of New Orleans, a lot of times people are not really truly buried 6 feet deep. We have the mausoleums and all of these things, and some of the rot and decaying body had infected people also in the New Orleans area, because like I said, you couldn't bury that body deep to decompose in the ground like that.
And then, like with the malaria and the yellow fever, we already have an epidemic of mosquitoes. Just from the geography, from the swamps and the bayous and all the canals that ran through the city, that ended up in a lot of areas being a standing water area. And that helped them breed. And when they got infected, that was it. I mean, the city, they had a lot of smoke. They tried to smoke them out.
You got to think about all the different cultural differences of people that came here too. I'm sure that wasn't an issue until colonial powers came through here and was living the way they used to live back there, here, which is not the same. It doesn't coexist. It's a difference.
And being a port city, we know they quarantined the enslaved in what is now Algiers. But they didn't quarantine the European coming over on the boats. And I'm quite sure a lot of them brought sicknesses that may not have turned into epidemics or pandemics, but I'm quite sure they turned into some like measles and stuff like that. I'm quite sure we had some outbreaks of that too.
Mm-hmm.
But once they started cleaning up and got a sanitation department and ordered people to go around actually and clean the streets of the trash, you know,
somebody had to put the trash in the street.
The people did that lived there. They all just dumped it, and if you was walking too close, when they opened that upstairs window, it got dumped on you too. That's why people walk in the middle of the street. Like I like to say, get out that road. But that's really why people walk in the middle of the street, to keep from getting dumped on close to the buildings. And we just kept that habit because people in New Orleans will rather walk in the street than walk on the sidewalk.
Yes, indeed.
But this city in the South, Mississippi, Alabama, all the southern states, just with the heat alone was an incubator for diseases and illness and sickness. And our people knew how, if they stayed in their pharmaceutical areas where their herbs and stuff grow, that's why we survived the most of it. I think it was what?
You know, in the city they have...
I think it was yellow fever. They ended up having more slaves than actual people that were surviving it.
Yeah.
The slaves outnumbered in the state of Louisiana, outnumbered the free, let's just say free, the enslavers, the colonizers.
Yeah, in 1866.
And that was a big fear too.
60s and 70s, 1860s and 70s.
Actually, between 1796 and 1905, Louisiana was repeatedly ravaged by multiple yellow fever epidemics, taking more than 100,000 lives throughout the state and 40,000 within New Orleans.
Yeah.
The New Orleans yellow fever epidemic of 1853 is considered the worst single disease epidemic to befall a major U.S. city. An estimated 11,000 people died that morbid summer, wiping around 10% of the total population of New Orleans.
And I would like to say they have a museum. It's called a Pharmacy Museum down in the French Quarters. And when you go in there, they have a recipe that, and it was a recipe of all herbal concoction that was supposed to help ward off yellow fever. But it's interesting to see how they was thinking at that time of putting certain herbs together to try to ward off such a disease that was an epidemic at that time.
Yeah, that's actually the first pharmacy in the United States.
That's correct.
The first actual pharmacy.
That speaks to the cultures and the medicine that was here prior to the United States. There was an existing system of medical practice and medical practitioners that healed people. I actually come from a line of my mother's side of the family are healers in that way. I have newspaper articles written about them in the early 1800s out of Tuscaloosa, Mississippi.
They even had a special jar that they kept leeches in there. You could go in there and buy leeches. Oh, leeches, give me the creeps to this day. My mama used to have me go collect them. Oh.
And we know a great deal of Marie Laveau's mystique really came from the fact that she provided services to these yellow fever epidemic patients without ever getting sick herself.
Yes, that's right. She tended to a lot of sick people, especially in the epidemic, and she did not get sick, and that made people really look twice at her like, wait a minute. She actually nursing them up close to them. They breathing on her.
But what's ironic, Marie Laveau too, her oldest daughter, I believe she succumbed to yellow fever in 1852, I believe, 1856, one of those years. And but she was a powerful voodoo priestess in her own right. But she did, but the mama, like you said, did not.
She might have had built up immunities, natural immunity that she didn't pass on to her children.
That's a good point.
Bread, leeches were a common medical instrument during that time. Not just here, but in Europe. So they would collect leeches to suck out the poison or the infection or whatever they thought.
Blood. It's giving me the willies just thinking about them, because once they latch on to you, you can't get them off. And if you pull them too hard and break that head off on your body, then you really gonna make it worse. So you have to put fire on them to make them let go of you. They curl up in a ball like a roly-poly when you put fire to their tail. That's where we had to put the match to the tail to make them let loose. And my mama used leeches on animals too. She used a snake bit our cat and had a big old blister. My mama put 2 leeches on there, and that cat just let them be on there too. And it's funny. Me and my daughter was talking about it while we was driving through all that country. And I was telling her about how I used to be in the Peru with my dog going through the swamp canals in the bayou. And I was like, man, you couldn't pay me to do that today. What was I thinking? It was so natural though. It was like playing on a playground. But now looking back at it, it was like, I can't believe I did all of that stuff. I didn't give it a second thought while I was living it, though.
Not to change the topic or anything, but I know yesterday we addressed the elephant in the room, and I think there's another elephant in the room that we should address, being people of color who represent the community here. I'm going to say we addressed Charlie Kirk in that situation. I do want to bring up another gentleman that was slain and hung in Mississippi on Monday at the Delta State University. Him and another gentleman, he was a student. His name is Trey Reed. He was 21 years old. He was found hanging on the university campus. I'm saying this because in the light of all this stuff that's going on with Charlie Kirk, there's a lot of people that's coming out and how can I say it? They're frustrated because his following of people were very racist. We're gonna say that because we got a young man that is hanging in a tree in a university in the state of Mississippi. In 2025,
two were found hanging from a tree within a 24-hour period.
Yeah. So I'm saying this to say that we must be mindful and protect ourselves and be aware of what the threats that we have around us, and not be naive to anything. And anyone.
Because the day after he was unalived, they had to lock down several Black colleges because they had got threats. So that was the day after. Now you find the next day, they find a Black man at a college, even though it was a mixed college, mainly white students we find on a college campus. one of those campuses that Charlie Kirk would go to, because that's what he specialized in, going to colleges besides his podcast.
I'm saying this because I know that these type of universities, you don't have many representation there. We don't. Say for instance, we're the only 3 people that's in the university, or that's only 4 people that's in a university. We would have to look and have our back more than anybody else that's on that campus in order to make sure that we are secure.
I think they said Delta is only 39% black.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that it's best for us to stick together, protect one another, not be fueling any type of hate or division amongst each other right now. There's a lot of talk about within our communities, but we need to come together because we have a threat that's unseen.
A very serious one.
A serious threat. So we need not to be fighting amongst each other. And we need to be about keeping ourselves and keep being diligent about our people and making sure that we're not being attacked for no reason. I'm sure this gentleman didn't see that coming.
Yes. And what I'm waiting for is the cover up.
Yeah, it's very unnerving because I went to a university similar to that. That was where I didn't have many people of color around me, but the ones I did have around me, I kept them close to me, and I appreciate those gentlemen. But to be in school, trying to focus on work, trying to focus on bettering yourself and educating yourself, and then you have to deal with the fact that there's individuals that might be trying to get you because of the way you look, not because of what you've done. It's a whole nother level that most Americans or people in America don't know anything about except for people of color. So I'm saying we need to be mindful of one another and protect one another in this time.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, we come to the end of our show, and I want to turn it over to Elder Reggie to close us out.
Thank you, Sister Toni, for the pass. Brother Joshua, beautiful, beautiful topic, and maybe we'll touch up on it some more. I would like to add to that, but we're about to close. Divine Prince brings such great shows to us. But it was an interesting thing, Divine Prince. I don't know who typed it up, but Divine flashed it. I thought that was pretty interesting, that because they had the word voodoo in it, and it was used to come up with an inoculation, I guess used by the army. I seen the little flash, but I didn't read it. Yeah, this right here. Can I read it, please? Black man voodoo, an enslaved black man, was the founder of modern medicine. The army used his polarized smallpox inoculation. Outstanding. Yes, yeah. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and read. Okay, lest we forget, the spiritual medicine of voodoo in the physical medicine of voodoo brings healing and relief from the shackles of slavery that binds the master and the slave to the same chain of social division. Wow, that chain is real. And we'll continue to build on this. I want to say good night, everyone. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Thanks for such a great show, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Have a nice night.
Odabo.
Oh, sure.
Mes amis, on disait la vie m'a caché.